How bad your deploys are. How much time do you guys spend on deployments and cloud costs? Put your hand up if you spend a lot of time on cloud costs. Most of us, exactly. Why you should listen to me, at least just a little bit. I want to give you guys a little bit of background about me. 20 years, Java, cloud, startups, enterprise, Silicon Valley. I think a lot of my time has been spent firefighting. I feel like some developers only, they just code and they throw it over the wall and they don't see the pain. Like, I've been in the pain. A lot of my time has been spent in the pain. I feel the pain, and I've become very jaded about it. I did just recently get the AWS Gold Jacket, so that's all the AWS certs. I was really bored and just decided to take all of them. But I love AWS. There's a lot of cool functionality in it, and I feel like the one thing it kind of taught me is, like, there's a lot of cool functionality in AWS that people miss. They stick on one thing, EKS, ECS, whatever, and then just stick to it. They don't know what the purpose of the cloud is and how to make their jobs easier. My advice here is from what I've learned, about 95% of the Java shops in Toronto, we're not Netflix. No one here is Netflix. Like, I'm sorry, like, most of us have little CRUD apps, and like, this is for 95% of us, and yes, these are generalizations, but you should still trust me anyways, and follow them. You're promised this would be easier, right? So CI/CD was supposed to make things easier. Cloud was supposed to be cheap. Kubernetes was supposed to help everyone, right? Who's heard that? What'd you get instead? Builds are slow, deployments are painful, cloud costs are out of control. Who can relate here, right? Somewhere along the way, we forgot the point. It's just, like, end of the day, it's just value. It's not about the buzzwords. It's how fast can we make things and how cheap can it be? And how fast can it be? So stop. I think the way I would summarize things here with this talk is where I think the industry has gone bad is this chase on to trends and buzzwords and maintaining infrastructure you don't need. I have seen this, like $10 a month AWS cost for an Java app is possible. 15-minute lead time to production. Like, when is the time? I've seen this happen where if your boss comes to you and there's a small risk change, I don't know, some little config change, and I've been in this situation where it's like, look, we need to get this out ASAP. It's going to make us an extra $1,000 an hour. Like, how quickly can you get your app deployed to production? Anyone? Like, I've been, 15 minutes is possible, but a lot of the places that I see, it's still months or like days just to get these long, complicated pipelines. So I want to tell you guys, all this stuff is possible. But where people falter is this obsession with cargo culting and buzzwords specifically, instead of like the value. Like, let's stop wasting time. Let's get things out fast. How fast can you get into production? Who here deploys on Fridays at 9 p.m.? Oh. No one else? I still see this happening. When's the safest time to deploy? Monday morning. Monday, 8 a.m. Good answer. Man, if I had some... Okay. Who here is scared of deploying to production? Oh, some people, wow. How do we get there? So for the first section, it's like how... This was just talked about, but use all of your capacity. So there's two fundamental mistakes that I see. Does anyone host their own agents, like Jenkins on-prem or GitHub Runners on-prem? Anyone? The first, sorry. The first mistake that I see is like how many times, like, this doesn't really become a problem when you're outsourcing and using software as a service, but you have these builds and you have these wait times, these long wait times of hours, but you have all these agents idling. Like, it's just a complete waste of time. I see it all the time. Does everyone use Maven or Gradle wrapper? Does no one not use it? Does no one not know what it is? Oh, wow. It's a great crowd. Yeah, use Maven wrapper. I still... this entire talk has come out of a rant from a recent client, and you'd be surprised that some people still don't know what it is. But this crowd is awesome.
Actually, we just run Maven as far as I
Use Maven wrapper.
Just Maven.
So I mean, there's a functionality. I think Gradle had it first, and then Maven decided to add it.
Oh, it's a good. When you see internal projects,
The
W at the end.
It removes the dependency on Maven, because the issue that I see with build agents, especially when you're self-hosting, is this agent has Maven 4.5, this agent has Gradle, but this agent has pip, and this agent has that. So you have all the stuff that's waiting to be built, but only one agent could build it. But the wrappers take care of it. Same with CPUs. Rookie mistake 101, I still see it. By default, who knows how Maven runs? Single-threaded or multi-threaded? There you go. If you guys could take away one thing, especially if you're more on the enterprise corporate side, double check if your CI/CD agents run with that command. Like it's the -T1C, which is use one thread per CPU. You could set it as like I think an environment variable. I think in Gradle you have to do it too explicitly too. But if you look at your builds, it was a great intro by the way. I think even this laptop is 16 core right now, and build agents, or 32 core Xeons, people start throwing hardware and hardware to make their builds faster, but if you actually profile things, you'll see that by default only one CPU is being used, whereas tools like Gradle they can distribute things, but you have to turn it on, including for Maven. So that'd be like, this would be the first thing I would check out, and this right there, I've gone into organizations and just turned on this one thing, and okay, all your builds are 3 times as fast. That's it. And then you got to parallelize everything else. So not just the build. The other big mistake that I see people make is they think in terms of pipelines, so it's sequential. So you do your Maven test, and then the next step is the Maven build, and then the next step is the Maven build 1, or whatever. It's all these sequential steps. What I tell people to do is just make one Maven call or one Gradle call, and then parallelize it, and let Maven or Gradle figure out how to do everything. Not force it to do sequential steps. Especially if your unit tests are the longest, like start them first. If I parallelize everything, I hate the term pipelines. I'm going to get into a rant about it too. Yeah, if your build system is single thread in 2025, it's just sabotage. Nothing. I don't think you can buy a laptop that's single threaded. Pointless work. Don't build on README edits or random document changes. Like GitHub Actions, there's an easy way to just do ignore build on X. Like, you'd be surprised what a big waste of time it is when maybe you have your document technical writers working on doc changes and they're just triggering builds off all the time. This one's controversial. You don't need containers. I think they've become, and I'll get into this a little bit deeper, containers just bloat everything for you. They've almost become this like microservice thing of 20 years ago where everyone thinks you need them for everything. I'm not saying that they're bad, but why not just build a jar file where you have a 30 megabyte file you could pass around and then do something with it, maybe put it in a container, as opposed to passing around a 300 megabyte thing and like uploading to S3 or Artifactory or whatever. You don't need containers as much as you want. The testing one is big too. I just tell people to strip out tests that don't add value. If they're flaky, just delete them. I think my other big pet peeve is code coverage. every single time I have seen a mandate of code coverage, some non-technical person from security or from whoever mandating, like, developers don't know what they're doing. We need 100% test coverage because that's the only way to go. Developers are smart, they're just going to game it. And you're going to see a whole bunch of tests with no asserts. And I've had to write JUnit rules that check for tests that don't have asserts. But yeah, just remove flaky tests. Don't repeat yourself. So it's the other thing that I see is people redoing the same work multiple times, like multiple builds. There was one client that I worked with recently where they just decided we're going to build things 4 times. I mean, I could explain why, but just build it once, exactly once. I will also add that a PR build, if you merge from branch before you kick off your PR build, so your PR, like before you do your PR, then that build is going to be exactly the same as what trunk is. So why do it? Why do a PR build and a trunk build if it's exactly the same? So I actually tell people to skip PR builds. Does anyone do snapshot builds and release builds? Okay, yeah, don't do snapshot builds. I still see people. I don't know if it's from the open source community where you still have Java snapshots on some projects, but there's no reason to have snapshots and release builds. Just do, like, everything is a release candidate, and every build can be deployed to any environment. Nobody does multiple builds per different environment, right? It's a good crowd. Dependency caching. So I mean, this is another mistake that I see is people, especially if you're using GitHub Actions like ephemeral runners, where people forget that every time you spin up this runner, if it doesn't have its dependencies, like the Maven or the Gradle, get me all, like Spring Boot, logging, log4j, whatever, if you don't cache them, every time you do your build, it'll go pull them down again and again and again. So you always have to remember to put the little line of like, hey, cache my dependencies. And for whatever reason, I see people miss that. Gradle's awesome, both for incremental builds and build caching, especially in CI. And then you obviously use NX to speed things up even more. And then yeah, Gradle gives you speed, caching, and flexibility. Maven gives you XML. That's slim down your build artifacts. I find once you start getting into bigger things, I kind of like to just strip down this thing that I'm passing around. Like if I'm passing around a 500 megabyte Docker file, like it's going to slow things down, especially if I'm building fast and I'm pushing into S3. So slightly more advanced, but I like to just make it as small as possible. So I dropped the whole container thing, especially for Hello World. It's just the jar file, self-contained, like fat with everything. Especially when you get into things like Lambda, Spring Boot I find is heavy. It works if it's always running, but if I'm using something like Lambda and just want to start up fast, I've had more success with the lighter frameworks. Or you could always just compile it down. And then just do a check from time to time on your pom.xml or a Gradle build. You'd be surprised how many redundancies you have, and you can just start stripping them out. Especially with transitive dependencies, you might have the same artifact multiple times, and there's ways of cleaning it out. And then anyone here use Lambda? There's a way to do it where you can actually strip out the dependencies into layers so that it's not as big and starts up quicker in Java. Make deployments easy and daytime friendly. One line deploys, no plugins, no rituals, no ceremonies. I actually tell people to, I don't like putting deploy scripts in CI/CD. I prefer to put them like in your Gradle script. I know Maven you can't really, but then you can always test things easily. You can let developers push locally from their workstations into lower environments, and especially like, yeah, developers should be able to deploy from their local machines, and you should be able to do zero downtime there, and I'll get into the tools. Like your deploys should be zero downtime. You should be able to deploy Monday morning at 10 a.m. when it's the safest time, and then roll back instantly. Does anyone not do that? No? Everyone has zero downtime deploys. Oh, wow. This is,
It's too easy.
well, I'm,
We can only do it with Kubernetes though.
yeah. Relying on manual gates. Does anyone here do mandatory PRs? Just stop. Just stop doing them. They're a waste of time. No, but seriously, I just find they slow things down. Like, if you have a good team and they're smart, I feel like everyone understands what a high-risk change is. If it's like I'm updating a README, I shouldn't have to track someone down. There's much better ways. I hate PRs for code review. They're not as, I personally think that they're not as efficient as PRs or mob coding. There's tons of better ways. And if I need a PR, which I'm not saying PRs are bad, it's the mandatory PRs. If there's a piece of code that I'm touching and I don't know what I'm doing, I'll just make sure to do the like get blame and see who was working on it and ask that person specifically for the PR, but not, this random junior that's gonna nitpick me about, I don't know, spelling or spacing instead of thinking about the fundamental issues. Does anyone do QA sign-offs or like have a separate QA team? Or does anyone have XCAB or TCAB meetings? Oh, this is nice. They were cute in 2006. But even I do find even the security tests and like any type of other tests, at least with GitHub Actions, you could define, if you have to do them, there's a thing called code owners where maybe you just let your security team create their own security pipelines, but they don't slow you guys down. So that's one thing to look into. If you really, really want to fix things, where I've seen the most success is you get rid of the silo approach altogether and you kind of do the AWS model of you build it, you run it. The QA person who's probably technical is part of the team, the DevOps person is part of the team. Everyone has skin in the game, but I do find that traditionally as soon as there's a DevSecOps team and an SRE team and a release engineering team and an AppOps team and a QA team and an observability team, like everyone's trying to blame each other, it just slows things down. And this pet peeve of mine that I've had recently, because I'm starting to think that this is pipelines, the concept pipelines has become the new cargo cult, like the microservice of 10 years ago or the Kubernetes of 5 years ago, where business thinks we need a pipeline. Like they latch on to pipeline, they latch onto this factory concept of everything needs to be sequential, and I need my little pretty graph to show me that the thing passes from test to security to QA to building project one. And I hate this concept. Like it's made things much worse, I would argue. You don't need a pipeline. Like I wish somebody could just get rid of that word. Like what builds are dependency graphs. And you let Gradle or whatever, or NX figure out how to build it fastest. They're not a sequential set of steps like a factory. And for whatever reason, I'm seeing, especially the corporate space, really latch on to like, everything needs to be a pipeline. End of the day, does this give value to users? Does it make it faster? If not, it's noise. Who here has internal DevOps frameworks that they're mandated to use? And what do you guys think of them? Do you love using them?
It's all right.
It's all right. Just one person uses. I feel like if they're mandated, unless you're like one of the big FANG companies or whatever, they make things worse. Like if I joined a project, just lock down GitHub Actions, but let me create my own workflows. Just put the guardrails in place, but I don't want to use anyone's like internal framework that requires a wiki to understand. But this is where I've seen the most success with these frameworks is like, if you must have a DevOps team, like have them put guardrails in place, but don't create all these tools where now I can't just use the open source equivalents. GitHub Actions, I do love GitHub Actions for what it did compared to things like Jenkins, where it's so dead simple. Like they even made it so that you're supposed to put your workflow as part of the code, which is what it's meant to be for developers. That's why it's part of the same repo. But as soon as there's mandates, I find they just kill flexibility. But yeah, the most successful teams, like, does anyone here not manage their own build scripts? Everyone manages their own build scripts? Oh no, one person. Oh, you should. It's pretty easy. Bamboo pipelines or whatever, like GitHub Actions. It just cuts back on the communication. Summary: use all of your communication. Stop doing pointless work. Stop building the same things twice. Slim down your artifacts, the manual gates, and just wipe pipelines from your vocabulary. What about, like, how cheap can it be to run your app? Does anyone here know? Does anyone here even know the AWS costs? I mean, that's problem number one, that you guys don't know, because now you're disconnected. How high are we talking about for like a dev environment? Just a dev environment.
Dev environment?
Just a dev.
$1,500 a month?
1,500.
50 cents per month.
Boom. You nailed it.
Roundabout.
Okay, that's okay. Cloud costs. You're probably spending. Okay, I did want to point out that what people miss with cloud costs is that you're spending what you pay to AWS, but then it's also the undifferentiated. Like AWS calls it undifferentiated heavy lifting, but it's all the maintenance of like, oh, I gotta set up my IAM policies, I gotta manage my Kubernetes pod files, and I gotta orchestrate everything. There's really two costs, what you pay and the time you waste managing everything, and people forget the second one. If your CRUD app, your simple Java CRUD app is costing $1,000 per month in AWS for the dev environment, which I see, and it needs an entire DevOps team to manage, you're doing it wrong. So you should probably look into that. And that is fully 100% possible. Like your AWS bills for a Java app, like Spring Boot app, for your dev environment. Like I'm not talking about anything crazy with, I know, DR and like 100 calls per second or whatever. It's like, look, I just need a dev environment that my developers, 5 developers are going to call, I don't know, 50 times a day. Like that's what it should be, $10 a month. It shouldn't be $1,500, and I still see it. There are many. How many ways do people know to run AWS? So Java apps on AWS. Kubernetes. There's a whole bunch. I'm pretty sure I missed some. Batch, ECS, App Runner, Fargate. There's a lot. Outposts. I think you could get into App Composer if you include that for Lambda. Let's do a quick review. Anybody deployed at EC2? The OG? Yeah? A long time ago. It's still solid. I still see it. But I mean, what are the problems, right? Like, why do we not use EC2?
I don't want to have a system.
Yep, exactly. You got to manage the OS, the patches, the scaling, everything. You could do anything with it, but the simplicity is not there. The undifferentiated heavy lifting, like this overhead that you have to add on your developers or whoever, like it's high. Like you got to manage the patching, whatever. There's a huge amount of overhead. Kubernetes. Who here uses EKS? A solution looking for your problem. Huge operational overhead for a questionable ROI. I'm not saying it's inherently bad. I'm just saying for this bases in Toronto for 95% of them, I question the return on investment because of the overhead. There's a lot of overhead and there's a lot of pain, and I constantly see the pain, and it's pretty high.
Indeed.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
You're on the hook for everything. Like, I think the key point is you'd probably be better off not using it. That's my point. What about ECS? Who uses ECS? All right, it's a step up. It's certainly a lot easier than EKS. There's still a lot of stuff like on top of Docker. You got to deploy your you got to define your tasks, your services, etc., and your Docker file. And there's still a lot of management. It's not as bad as EKS. If there was one thing you guys could take away from here is don't use EKS. If you're going to use ECS, that's better. Is there a better way on Amazon for running containers?
You considering Fargate part of this or no?
I kind of consider it because it's the run on top of Fargate. Yes, there is, except it's missing in Canada. It's kind of, I think it came out a couple years ago. It's this kind of platform as a service, almost Heroku, but just for containers on AWS. But for whatever reason, it's still missing in Canada. So I know, recently I had to rule it out for someone because they needed to be in the two Canada regions, Calgary and Toronto. But if you don't have to run in Canada and you could run in the US regions, I would look into AppRunner. It's a lot, it takes away a lot of the heavy lifting. But you still got to deal with the containers and stuff. And yeah, obviously it's not in Canada.
What's the cost difference?
Cost difference?
The ECS. Yeah.
I think it's ECS. I think you run on Fargate.
Okay.
Yeah, under the hood. But I find it's the undifferent. I find it's not the running, but yeah, because you're right. Some of them, because the saving plans aren't as good.
Yeah.
But I find it's the waste on the undifferentiated heavy lifting that's bigger, where you need, 4 full-time salaries managing all this stuff.
Right.
Lambda, does anybody use Lambda? Yeah. Does anyone use a Spring Boot?
No.
Wrong button. There's issues that it comes with, right? The cold start times, there's the 15-minute runtime limit. Typically, a Spring Boot app, I don't know if I wouldn't run Spring Boot on it. You probably need to strip it down, use a lighter framework. Where I do see the benefits is the really short bursts, but not for long-running services. Your cost-saving plans aren't as good. In general, if you're going to have something running all the time, just use something else. It's this thing doesn't run except once a month. Okay, it's a good choice, but running a Spring Boot app for services or for APIs that are going to get hit all the time, you're going to make things a lot more expensive. And then I have observed the sprawl that happens with Lambdas, where you have 1,000 Lambdas and now you have to orchestrate everything and things get super messy. What's nice is that it is serverless, so you just deploy your function, but there's constraints. Is there a better way? There's 2 more ways that I wanted to talk about. One of them, to be fair, is only for single page apps, but there's another way. Does anybody know the other 2 ways?
Is the SPA stuff just using CloudFront and SPA?
There you go, that's one way. What's the other way? There's a much better way in Amazon, but it's always neglected.
So what are we talking about?
This drives me nuts. It's Elastic Beanstalk. It's the Heroku PCF of. It's this neglected thing that nobody wants to. I've heard people talk about they talk about PCF where I don't get it. It's so simple. Why would I want to use it? It takes away all the fun because it is there's nothing to manage. It is at the point where you just give it a jar file. And maybe you checkmark auto scale, and you can have it set up all your networking, everything. It's EC2 under the hood. You don't pay extra, so you get all the benefits of EC2 costing. You can do on-demand, reserved, like it's EC2 under the hood. They've just abstracted things away where it's just like, here's my Spring Boot jar file. Go run it for me. But yeah, I've heard exactly the same complaints about it as with PCF or Heroku, where people think, especially ops people, they're like, well, this means that I don't have a job because there's nothing to manage. Why would I want it? It supports cloud native jars directly. No need for Docker, but you could still push Docker to it. And there's a whole bunch of other languages that supports. Auto-scaling, monitoring, networking. Blue-green deploys out of the box with URL swapping. It just does a whole ton of stuff up for you out of the box. EC2 under the hood. Undifferentiated heavy lifting. It's almost gone. But yeah, there's one more better way, that if you are doing a React app or an Angular app, like just skip all of this and just shove it into S3 and CloudFront. Like I'm surprised how many times I've seen people spin out node servers that just serve static content through React, and you're like, why would you? And not even on Beanstalk, on like Kubernetes, of this node script, like this node app that just serves your client side React app. But yeah, if it's React or Angular, just host. This is by far the best way. Ultra cheap. You just put it, scales out, puts it on your CloudFront CDN. Yeah, that's where I would shove it. Reducing costs. If your developers don't know the costs of your environments, I find that's where the breakdown happens. At the very least, like I tell people to like tag from day one in AWS. There's ways you can enforce it with SCP, service control policies, where like you can't not put a tag on and it'll force you to put stuff on. I find it's almost like DevOps, where if you put it on the developers and those teams, like they start realizing that, oh yeah, we need to optimize, but just giving them that visibility of how much it costs. But as soon as they don't see it, it's okay, well, I'm just gonna spin up all these EC2 instances for testing and like forget about them. And then you have all these orphan things, and then they go away. And there's a lot of great tools in AWS too that just like Cost Explorer budgets, anomaly detection. There's some really cool tools that kind of detect costs, or can, especially if things are tagged for you, you could kind of break down and see what's costing you a lot of money. And I do like to, especially if the incentives are there, if you could, like, if that motivation is there for development teams to keep costs down and they could see it and visualize it, and it's on a pretty dashboard in a report, you're not going to get $2,000 bills. Right sizing your resources. You don't need multi-AZDR for lower environments. Like what you want in lower environments is a developer could just, oh, I need an environment, just spin it up. I just need to do some calls and then shut it down. You don't need multi-AZ with crazy Terraform scripts or CloudFormation or whatever. You don't need spec'd out instances. Like, you actually don't need that much even for a Spring Boot app. And there's additionally, like, there's a great tool called AWS Compute Optimizer that shows you how much you're using it. And there's a nice little cheat where they AWS added, it's called Graviton. It's ARM-based, but you could run it with Java. But I think it's like 25% cheaper for the same performance. So just switching your JDK stuff to Graviton is a saving of 25% right off the bat. And then I feel like a lot of people, I still see people kind of default to on-demand pricing. So Amazon and Azure, whatever, they all have different pricing plans. Just use the right one. Just be aware of them. Don't just default to on-demand. Stop paying for things you don't need. You're not Netflix. Monoliths, monoliths are better. And single mono repos, etc. Pipelines, microservices, Kubernetes, Scala, They cause so many issues. so many issues for people. It's not that they're inherently bad. It's people have gone so crazy on microservices, not realizing the overhead of orchestration, of the traffic costs, of the latency, of now I need to like manage all these other things. There's nothing wrong with defaulting to monoliths. Same with containers. Not that they're bad. I love containers on my work machine. Sorry, like on my desktop. That's where the value is, where I don't have to, if I have to, for whatever reason, install Oracle, it's not going to pollute my system with everything installed all over the place. And I think that's what Docker was made for. It was for local development. But you don't need to use containers for deploying production apps or Kubernetes. Same with serverless. The costs aren't there. Like, so the cost savings, especially with AWS, aren't there. Like, it's nice that you don't have to manage any infra. But from everything that I've seen, like, the cost savings isn't there for serverless. You don't need service mesh. You don't need service discovery. You don't need Envoy, Istio, app config, sidecars, step functions, 17 types of logs. Stop adding complexity. All this stuff. If you have a super good use case, go for it. But it's this buzzwordy thing of like, we need all these buzzwords to make things better. Just stop. Keep it boring, keep it simple, save money, sleep better. The other thing that I see is like data sprawl. This needs a little bit of work that you have to stay on top of, but not letting things, like people just spin up services or spin up S3 service is and never delete them. I know orphan resources is something that I've seen, especially if you're not forcing tagging, where you let developers spin up sandboxes and then no one deletes them and no one's paying attention to budgets and you don't know where it comes from and you're afraid of shutting it down because you're like, oh, this might be a production thing because nobody tagged it. But just being careful of all the stuff, or using intelligent tiering in S3, or there's different tiers for storage. And logs. Logs is the one that I've seen suck up a lot of costs, especially if you get into things like Splunk, where you have developers decide that they're going to log everything, every single like entering method, exiting method, like second section, like stop logging entering method. That's another pet peeve of mine. Like logging's meant for like exceptional cases and for stack traces. You use metrics for everything else. Spring Boot has micrometer, so you could pretty easily like send data off into CloudWatch, down a trace New Relic. But my take is use logging for exceptional cases, for stack traces, those type of things, but not logging everything. It doesn't scale. Once you get high traffic, you're going to get hit with like thousands of dollars of Splunk bills or AWS traffic bills, etc. And then use structure logging instead of one big giant string. Don't do debug logging in prod. Summary, what you should be doing, use Beanstalk. It's the best choice. It's just boring. Like people just hate it because it's boring and takes away all the work, but that's what it should be. And if you have Angular or React, just shove it in S3. It will make your job a lot easier. Log less, data sprawl. Last section, so the AI advantage. Does everyone here use AI at work? ChatGPT, Copilot, Cursor?
Yeah.
Does anyone not use it? Oh wow, this is a lot better than, because I gave a talk here on AI a year ago and nobody was using it. Okay. So you guys know it, just.
Because of you.
Thanks. It's just use any tool at this point is better than nothing. Copilot, Cursor, ChatGPT. ChatGPT added IntelliJ integration just recently, which is pretty cool. I was messing around with it the other day. Anyone use Deep Research or the Google equivalents?
Yeah.
That is another thing that's like really wowed me, where when I needed to like research something, even on tech, but recursively throughout the internet, like hours of time saved, but it's not there on the free account. I said this before like a year ago, but like not giving devs access to AI is like not giving them Stack Overflow or like access to like the internet 30 years ago. Like you're not going to get replaced by AI, you're going to get replaced by the developer that's using AI, and you're not. Everything's much better about it. It's not just like I use it for everything. I use it in my personal life everywhere, but I don't just use it for writing code. It's like silly code mandates to get 90%. All right, generate BS unit tests, explaining errors. You could create diagrams like architectural diagrams. I think it exports to Mermaid format, which then you could put into Mermaid. Obviously, it does cover letters for TPS reports. It's regular expressions is another time saver. I just remember how much time I used to spend like trying to like fine tune my regular expressions, and now you just do it in plain English, and it does it for you. Two other quick, cool AWS services I wanted to mention. There's a new one called DevOps Guru that just hooks in pretty nicely and does a lot of detection. What else? Oh, and then Bedrock is the other one. It's the OpenAI API equivalent that I've hooked into CI/CD, where now I could just call instead of, I don't like having multiple services and accounts, so instead of using something like ChatGPT API, you call Amazon Bedrock as your LLM. So if something breaks in the build, you could send the build error message to Bedrock, and it could tell you how to fix it right away. So that's the equivalent one. Final points. What works in 2025? Use all of your cores, your agents. Don't rebuild nonsense. Beanstalk, not Kubernetes. Monoliths are fine. I feel like the industry's finally started realizing that like this hardcore push on microservices is bad, which is why they've kind of with has anyone used Spring Moduliths? Spring Modulith. It's like the new. It's a new framework out of Spring. I still don't get it because it's the stopgap. It's a stopgap. I think what it's for, because you're supposed to you build microservices, but in I may be butchering this, but you build microservices, but they're self-contained in a single jar, and then you could externalize them later. Although I could just use project folders and whatever. I feel like I was joking with somebody that I think Spring Modulith was just a way to convince non-technical CTOs in the enterprise space that are like super strong on microservices to it was just a way to revert people to monoliths without saying it's a monolith. Because for whatever reason, this word monolith has become dirty, and it shouldn't be. Less pain, drop the cargo cult. Obviously use AI. This is a super impressive crowd. You guys are ahead. It's the end of the day, it's the measurements. So it's the impact, it's the ROI, it's the money, it's your lead times, it's your AWS costs, it's your undifferentiated heavy lifting. It's not what buzzwords I could add on my resume. The real goal, faster delivery, better quality, lower cost, full stop. And questions? And then, sorry, I did want to say a little bit about myself. If anyone's looking for work, I'm hiring for cloud architects and DevOps too. So if you guys are